What's up, guys? I'm Uncle Freedom, coming to you on a glorious and well-deserved day off. Those are fewer and farther in between, which is one of the reasons you see me in the same shirt for like 4 videos, because I might get one of these. Right now, we're critically understaffed, as are most law enforcement agencies, and I'm actually only off today because I was forced to take vacation or I would lose it, because we've had no time to take vacation. So today, we're going to cover a subject that I feel like is vastly known, but really misunderstood a lot of the times. And by really competent shooters, guys that shoot a lot, they have a pretty good grasp on it, but I'm even going to present some things today for you that at the very least will help you understand it more. And for those of you that are new to this world and have been afraid to ask, you're going to learn a lot today. So we're going to talk about zeros. So what is your zero? Zeroing is, simply put, we are manually adjusting either an optic or iron sights so that we achieve a point of impact at our specified point of aim at whatever the distance was that we chose to zero that at. That's what a zero is. A zero is adjusting your aiming system so that where you're aiming at is where the bullet hits at the distance you've chosen it to happen at. At its core, a zero, though, is going to give us a basic understanding of external ballistics from the point at which our bullet leaves the barrel and impacts the target. Whatever that round is in between, knowing our zero is going to give us some pretty basic rudimentary understanding of external ballistics, which is important. Like, you should know ballistics to an extent. It's not just a sniper thing, man. I'm telling you right now, like, violent algebra is for everybody at some point. You need to understand some of your ballistic curve. That information, though, is going to educate us on our drops, right? It's going to give us a drop for a common engagement distance, let's say from directly in front of my muzzle out to roughly 400 yards. It's going to give us the capability to understand where our bullet would be at any point between where we're at and 400 yards away. If we know our drops, i.e. our holds, right? That's how it's referred, know your holds. If we know our holds, we can confidently engage any target that happens inside of our engagement envelope. Engagement envelope, simply put, is the distances in which you would be shooting. So what zero should we pick, though? This has always been a hot button topic, 100% of the time, which is, do we 2,500 to 25 to 300, or what about the 36? Oh, 5,200, 100 yard zero all day long. I zero an inch high at 100, right? I've heard all of these. I have even heard this one. And I was dealing with some guys. They were law enforcement dudes. We were having a discussion, and they told me that they zeroed their rifles for 10 yards because they were a CQB-oriented team. And, you know, we're zeroing at 10 yards because CQB, bro. Let's look at that. What if you're in a school, man? A supermarket, Walmart, a parking lot, a football field, or on perimeter? A 10-yard zero. So for those of you that have wondered what a 10-yard zero would be and why we'd be talking about it, so like, this is my issued patrol rifle. A lot of you have asked to get an update on this guy, and I'll have that coming. This rifle has eclipsed 10,000 rounds. There's been a lot of parts that have swapped, and currently we're running the aim point duty RTS on the the Unity Micro S mount. Pretty cool. That is zeroed for something I'm going to tell you in here, but let's look at a 10-yard zero, shall we? So of this is a 1/3 size IPSC, so we're going to use this as a representation for all zeros that I'm going to show you today. But if we look at this guy here, zero, right in the middle, right? 10 yards. See that? See that way up here? That's 50 yards. Point of aim. That's where I'm going to hit it 50 yards if I hold center mass with a 10-yard zero. What if I told you that to shoot effectively at 300 yards with a 10-yard zero, you would need to hold 47 inches low? But my CQB, bro, you basically took a rifle that is completely capable at 400 yards and decided to make it a freaking stick in a paperweight. You'd be better off throwing rocks at people. 10-yard zero. Don't do that. If you go to a class and a dude's like, 10-yard zero, it's what I preach because CQB, bro. That dude's an idiot. You need to find a new instructor. Volume 2 of that's coming soon. So for me, how do I do mine, right? And I like I said, I base this off of the optics platform that I'm going to be using. If I am using a dedicated magnified optic system, be that on a sniper weapons platform, a bolt gun, or an LPVO, I'm going to zero at 100 yards every time, because all of my magnified optics employ some form of a BDC or bullet drop compensator, or a Christmas tree style reticle, or at the very minimum a mil dot, which allows me to add, subtract, and dial. So I am going to be using that reticle itself to hold, and for those holds to be accurate, I need to be zeroing at 100 yards. It's a great platform for me to go off of to create dope and do all the stuff that I need to do. If I am not going to run at 100 yards, I'm going to run 36. I'm going to show you why in just a second, but that's 36 if we're running a red dot like this guy here. That again, that aim point duty RDS on the Unity, I'm going to run a 36 yard zero. Even if I have a 3-power magnifier on here, I'm still going to run a 36 yard zero, because I'm not trying to dial or account for anything. I'm just simply trying to shoot what I'm aiming at. So let's take a look at some common zeros. So let's start with the first one, 25-300, right? Everybody knows that one. If you're in the Army, you know about the 25-300 zero, because that's how we zero. We shoot at a very tiny E-type looking silhouette on a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. And when you get all your stuff in there, that's considered a zero, and you can shoot to 300 yards. So what does that look like on a piece of paper? Right? Remember I said I was going to use these as kind of a thing. So if we set our 25 yard zero, center mass, middle A zone, right? So that's my 25, that's going to be my zero. So let's say now we're going to engage at 100 yards. Well, if I still hold my single point of aim, and this is the important part, we're going off of, if I hold center mass, this is where the bullet would impact where on the target. So if here's where I'm shooting, at my 100 and 300 yards, I'm going to hit this guy in the neckline, right? So that's the difference on a 25 yard zero. If I was zeroed at 25 and I held center mass on a dude that was at 100 yards away, I'm going to shoot him basically right here, okay? Now, then we come up a step, right? One step over, just into the neckline here. That's going to be our 150 and 250. So again, if I'm holding center mass with a 25 yard zero, at 250 yards, I'm going to impact that dude in the throat. Same deal, we're going to step up. There's my 200 mark. It's going to be the kind of the peak of my trajectory curve. Remember what I said, zeroing gives us a basic rudimentary knowledge of our actual bullet trajectory, right? The external ballistics of our round. So we know at 25 yards, if that's where I'm aiming, at 200 yards, we're going to be peaked out, right? We're going to be roughly about 10 inches high, you know, if we look at this on a full-size silhouette. So I'm going to hit that dude in the face, but I'm still going to be on target. And then we're going to start coming back down, right? So 150, we're coming up. 200, we peak. 250, we're coming back down. And then we're going to drop down 100 and 300 is going to be here. And then by the time we get to 350, we're falling past our initial point of aim, which puts our 4 down here just below his sternum, and then 450 all the way in his waistline. So effectively, with a 25 meter zero, I can hold center mass and still connect with the dude, provided he didn't move, all the way to 450 yards. One of the reasons that the Army uses it, it's known as a 25-300 zero, because if you were aiming high thoracic and you put a 25-300, you are still going to impact that dude basically between the chin and the top of the thoracic cavity with that. So that is your layout for the 25-300 zero. And I'll post these targets up on Instagram. So if you don't follow, link down in the description box and it will take you to it. I can also send them to you if you wish. What about the next big zero that everybody talks about? The 5200, man. You got to do 5200. 5200 is an exceptionally good zero, and you're about to find out why. These are so close that I had to change the colors of my dots. So if we said, there's my 50 yard zero, right? Square, dead center, right? My 200 is literally going to touch the same hole, slightly above it. But that also means that because my 200, I'm coming back down, that means that my 100 and 150 are going to be a little bit high, right? Because I'm shooting my 50 on the arc coming up. I'm going to peak out somewhere at that 150 mark, and then I'm coming back down to connect it to. So my 50's here. We're going to rise up to my 100, 150. That's going to be my peak. We're going to start coming back down. We're going to impact 2 just above the 50. Now, here's the thing with 5200. If you're shooting for 3, we're down below the A zone now. We're down in that belly button region. And then 350, we're going to be just above the belt line. So that's basically what we're looking at for 5,200. Is it a bad zero? Absolutely not. It's an exceptionally good zero. And the reason it's such a good zero is because essentially from 50 to 200 meters, I'm going to stack my rounds in about that much space, wind dependent. But 50 to 200, so that means at 50, 100, 150, and 200, I'm going to stack everything right there in this little hole. That also means as I drop down at 300, I am still going to be getting a good center mass hit. I'm basically hitting right here at the xiphoid process, which is where your rib cages meet the cartilage right here, where you would give the Heimlich. I'm going to connect there, and then at 350, I'm going to smack that dude just above his belt buckle. But the 5,200, again, pretty solid zero. And all of these numbers were taken with a 16-inch AR, shooting a 55 grain as a standard, 3,000 feet per second. That's pretty decent considering ammo and, stuff. What about the 100? And this is the reason I say the 100 is always what I pick for a magnified object. You will notice we just go down, right? We're no longer worried about the up on our trajectory. That is a problem with shorter range zeros, is we are talking about catching that bullet on its up arc. We're going to hit high until we come down to the corresponding same mark, and then we're going to drop below our point of aim, which can be a problem if we're trying to shoot precision. It's much easier to do the violent algebra if we are talking about just dealing with drop, right? We can always account for gravity. This is one of the places where it shines. So if my 100-yard zero is dead center mass, dead center of that A zone, my 150 slightly below it, we're going to drop down to a little bit lower, just below the A zone on this guy. So we're talking about, again, that xiphoid process kind of area. That's where we're going to hit at 250. But that also means at 3, I'm going to basically hit you just above your belly button. And that 4 is going to be right in your belt buckle. I just can't show it. So 4 is like right here. So that means from point blank range out, I'm going to hit. Now here's the thing to keep in mind with this. We are matching our point peak trajectory right here. That means any point before this is going to be a little low. So if I'm shooting at, let's say 25 yards, I'm going to impact a little low of where I'm going to go because my peak and my trajectory is at 100 and everything after that's falling off, right? That means I'm going to hit low out to 100. I'm going to hit at 100, and then I'm going to start falling back down again. That's why it's so easy for us to do with magnified optics, because we're dealing with one constant only. We're not worried about the rise and fall before. So I told you that the zero that I choose to pick anytime I run a red dot or a red dot in a magnifier is a 36-yard zero. I'm going to show you why. Does this make me right? No. This just means this is the option I choose. All options are available to you. It's your gun, it's your gunfight, your ammo. I don't got to be at yours. You don't got to be at mine. So choose accordingly, right? If it makes more sense for you to have 100 on your red dot gun, then do 100 on your red dot gun. If it makes more sense for you to run a 5200, do it. I will tell you, if you have a zero that you are particularly partial to and you go to a class where the instructor is 100% a 5200 guy, if he comes up to you and he's like, is your gun zeroed? Tell him yes, only if you're actually zeroed. Show him that it's zeroed. And then when he asks you if he wants to make modifications, tell him like, hey, I run a 36-yard zero if that's what you run. I don't want to alter mine because all of my dope is set up on this zero. I understand what's going to be different at 50 yards and inside shooting a 5200. As long as you can articulate that, if you could articulate it to me as an instructor, I'm going to leave you alone because I'm not going to change something on your gun if you have a reason for why it is that way. Food for thought. So the 36, I love the 36, and this is why. So this is my 36-yard zero, right? Same place on the other two guns right there, right? What's cool about this is from my 36-yard, my 100 is the black dot here, my 150 is the peak of my trajectory, and there's my 200. So we're about an inch difference, maybe a little over an inch from 100, 150 to 200, then I'm going to drop back down, but I'm not going to get to my 36 yet, and now I'm hitting at 250. My 300, we're still inside of the A zone. So that means on an A zone, right, on a spot this big, with a 36-yard zero, I am inside of that box at CQB distances all the way out to 300 meters. I am impacting there, right? We're going to drop down slightly below, so just below that xiphoid process, a little below your belly button. That's where I'm going to put you at 350, and then just at your belly button out at 400 yards. I love this zero. This zero has always worked for me. It's always been my favorite. But ultimately, you have to decide what works for you. There are times with optics, such as like an EOTech EXPS 3-2, that's going to have 2 dots inside of it. It is set up for you to shoot at a 5200, and then that second dot is supposed to correlate to 500 yards. Here's the thing with stuff like that. Nobody said you can't go out and zero that at 36 yards because that's your favorite zero. But what you do need to do is go out and print that second dot at distance and figure out what that dot represents to you. We need to do the same thing if we have any kind of like a prism optic where we've got like a kind of a ranging reticle on the inside. Nobody said I have to zero that at 100 yards. I can zero that where I want to zero that, provided that I put some rounds downrange and discover what those holds mean for my gun in my environment. Now, all of these numbers here were taken at just about, I want to say I did this at 500 feet above sea level and stable atmospheric pressure. So these are going to be pretty consistent. Even where I'm at in Nebraska, I am at about 3,000 feet of elevation where I'm at here. Even shooting here with lower humidity and stuff, this tracks really, really true. So again, I'll post these up on my Instagram page for those of you. I'll also put them up on my Facebook page for those of you there. These will also show up on Patreon, though I'll be available to answer a lot more about these on Patreon. Again, all that stuff's down in the link down below. And again, if you follow any of those links to a certain store and you use that link, it helps the channel. And for that, I thank you. It doesn't cost you any more. You get your gear and I get a little bit of help on the backside because this is expensive sometimes. So there we go, guys. Are you wrong at any point? No. If you want to run a 25-yard zero, as long as you understand where your bullet is in flight, this is an okay zero for you. If you want to run the 36, as long as you understand the actual external ballistics, i.e. your holds in flight, you can do what you want with this zero. If we want to run the 5200, I will tell you right now, if I was not running a 36, the 5200 would be my choice just because of this. Because realistically with the red dot, how often are you going to find yourself engaging outside of 200 yards, right? You could. But as long as you knew that if I was going to shoot like 3 and 350, I would just need to neck hold this guy and I'm still going to punch him in the chest, that would be an option for you. So are you wrong if you choose that? No. But I will always tell you, for magnified optics, I'm always going to choose 100 because I'm only dealing with one variable. I'm no longer counting on the fact of what this thing is doing rising past my 100-meter mark. I'm just following it down. So that is how I view zeros. Zeros are a very personal thing, right? Maybe you like to zero your gun for maximum point blank range, and that max point blank range is 1.37 inches high at 75 yards, and that gives you max point blank, which is a maximum amount above or below an animal's kill zone, and you're going to be able to do that to 305 yards, and that's what you choose to run. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because I don't got to run your stuff, you do. But I will say, if you're going to run a fighting rifle, start with a well-known quantity that gives you good data to reference and go from there. You'll find yourself in a lot less trouble, and then you can fine-tune your approach, right? Try 25 and then go out and shoot at 300 yards. If you're like, man, I don't like where I'm hitting, try the 5200. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe the 36 is what you want. The point being, go out and try this stuff, right? You don't know if it's going to work for you unless you put some range time in and figure it out. So guys, it's been fun hanging out today. Hopefully you found this informative. Stay tuned because I'm going to tackle the pistol zero, and that one's going to make some people mad because how many of y'all have heard 10 yards, 15 yards, 25 yards is what you got to zero your red dot at? What if I told you it didn't freaking matter? And I'm going to show you why. So guys, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and until next time, I'll see you later.